sulfur balls were found by a Christian archaeologist to confirm the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. If you didn't know, the Bible describes sulfur coming down from the sky as it destroys the city of Sodom because of the wickedness in the city. But did you know that there's actually archaeological evidence to support this? We came across this channel called Expedition Bible. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. If it's not your first time watching a video, you might as well subscribe. What do you do?
So here you can see that ashy layer that's just underneath the surface. This is full of burned pottery. It's full of the fragments of human bones. The question is what evidence is there of this burning sulfur that rained down? Well, it seems that the culprit are these sulfur balls that are also found in this area.
He lit the sulfur on fire?
And what archaeologists found here was this burn destruction that goes across this site. This city came to an end through a fire destruction. So here you can see this ashy burn destruction layer just underneath the surface.
That's crazy.
Full of human bone fragments, burned pottery, and it's covering the entire site. So off in the distance here, you can see Baku identified as Sodom. And then right here to the southwest is this massive cemetery that you can see with all these pits that mark its boundaries. And these are formed because of the locals for decades have been coming and digging into these graves looking for antiquities to sell in the antiquity market.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's estimated.
Hold on.
Just defiling.
Not only did we discover archaeological evidence for Sodom and Gomorrah, not only is this somewhere you can go, but then you got people turning this into a racket where they're taking these bones.
But you can also have it in your living room off eBay right now.
This is crazy.
From the archaeologists that dug here back in the 60s and the 70s, that there are around 500,000 people buried in this cemetery.
That's dark.
It's just staggering. And what's
Hold
really
on. Sodom was that big? 500,000 people? 500,000 people is like all of North County, San Diego.
That's wild.
And this seems fairly densely populated.
Yeah, I wonder what big cities were back then.
Well, I mean, this would have to have been huge.
Yeah, a massive city, right?
Wow.
intriguing then is that they found a burn destruction across the cemetery that happened at the same time that the city was destroyed. So the city and the cemetery were destroyed in the same fire disaster. And there's no reason why an army would attack a bunch of graves and burn a cemetery. And so this was one of the major reasons that they interpreted the destruction here as being caused by a natural disaster. In the excavation report, they show pictures of the bones in the graves that were warped by the heat.
That's really hot.
So I'm up here on the site called locally Gomorrah, and this tower behind me was excavated, and 2 skeletons were found underneath the collapse of the tower on this side and one on the other side. There was burn destruction all through here, as you see in the picture from the excavation. However, it does seem like the collapse was able to preserve those skeletons better than most of the human remains here. You can see there's ash right here, and human remains, bones, are all through this ash.
Hold on.
Darkness.
This man those real bones?
He's just picking up human bones, dog.
Bro.
And you can just walk over there and find them too. They're just sitting out on the top of the surface.
I don't know if I could just pick up bones like that.
I know. Well, I guess if it's like a couple thousand years old.
Wow. I didn't know bones could be preserved this long.
Yeah, bones are great, I guess, huh?
It's crazy.
I mean, think about dinosaur bones, if you guys believe in
those. Oh my gosh. Those are fossils, though. Those are fossilized.
True. Yeah, they're not actual bones.
Yeah.
As you can see,
wow.
there's this destruction layer is filled with human bone remains.
Wow, that's the skulls. Oh my gosh.
That's like, this man just picked up a whole half of a face.
Wow.
For a Christian YouTube video, dog.
That should have been a daggone thumbnail right there. Wow.
That's nuts.
What?
Here's some ribs found in this area. Burned pottery. A total burn destruction. The excavators here, the main excavator here is Walter Rast, who excavated also at Baku. And he describes what they found in the excavations here at Gomorrah. He writes, "The burnt debris covering this site has appeared in almost every area excavated. Whatever the cause, it was certainly a tragedy. Obviously, the town suffered a severe fire and was forever abandoned." Now, despite Walter Rast being a secular archaeologist, His conclusion about what he found in the excavations at Babadra and here in Numera were these. He says this, in the author's opinion, the vicissitudes of these two early Bronze III cities of Babadra and Numera may well be reflected in the stories of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. Okay, so Babadra was destroyed by fire.
Hold on. So these folks are secular, non-Christian dudes. They're doing the archaeological work, and then they're like, yeah, no, it's very likely that this could have been Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, and they would probably, based off the archaeological evidence, not argue that Sodom and Gomorrah didn't happen. Mm-hmm. They would argue that it just wasn't God. They would probably just argue it was a natural disaster, and they wrote it in history as fire from God because that was a cultural context. But like everything, dude.
You know, God be using natural disasters in the Bible, though.
Oh, yeah. But also
floods, fire from the sky.
But also, he goes on in this video and discovers sulfur balls.
Yeah,
let's At the same time that its cemetery was destroyed by fire. The city was never rebuilt. This city, associated with Gomorrah, has a burn destruction over it. The city came to a dramatic end with the fire destruction at the same time that Babadra was destroyed by fire. And this city was never, ever, ever lived in again. What is it that burned these cities and the cemetery at Babadra? The Bible describes it as burning sulfur raining down from the sky. Yeah, and is there anything that that matches this description that's still left in the geological record in this area? What is this burning sulfur? And there is an archaeology museum here that where the excavations that have taken place here over the years, the artifacts are on display. So I'm going to take you to that museum called the Museum at the Lowest Place on Earth and show you their display and what they make as a connection between the destructions and this burning sulfur described in the Bible. And so here at this archaeology museum, they have on display here these sulfur balls that are found in the area down near the Dead Sea.
Sheesh.
And so their interpretation is that these are the culprits, that this is what caused these cities in this area to be burned in the ancient past. Now, when I first saw this display, I got really excited and I went and scoured the archaeological sites searching for sulfur balls, and I couldn't find any anywhere. And so one day I was guiding a well-known geologist through this area, and I brought him here to this museum. I showed him this display, told him my dilemma, and he said, oh, well, these would not be preserved on land. They would only be preserved in water. And so he encouraged me to go look for them in the areas that were once under the Dead Sea. And so I went down near the shore of the Dead Sea and looked in these areas where the Dead Sea waters have receded. And this is when I started finding sulfur balls.
Yo.
Oh my gosh, bro.
This is the sickest video ever.
I've been to the Dead Sea before.
Really?
That's a trip. Dead Sea's a trip.
So this is a sulfur ball. Sulfur balls, all these
are
sulfur balls. Here, here, here. Look at all of them.
Am I like the only one that's like, is he gonna light it? Because I want to see if these things still light.
I think he does.
Does he?
See. Yeah, right here.
Oh, snap. Yeah, play that.
I'm gonna burn one of these sulfur balls just to show you how flammable they are. I gotta be careful because, man, when you get a whiff of these things, it's really nasty.
That's pretty crazy. So the idea is that they came down from the sky on fire.
This is one of the reasons why sulfur balls would only be preserved in water, because if they strike the land, then they're gonna burn up. You can see the goo, it's just melting down to goo and then dripping off. So really, anywhere that they would have landed on land, they would have burned up like this, and they would have burned anything flammable around them. This is how the cities in the plain were burned. However, if they would have hit the water of the Dead Sea, that would have extinguished them.
Right.
And therefore, they wouldn't have burned up.
They would have been preserved.
And they would have sank down to the bottom of the floor of the Dead Sea and been preserved in a geological layer.
Wow.
That's crazy. What is a sulfur ball? An accumulation of sulfur in the form of iron pyrites, sometimes found in coal seams, often hard enough to break the bits. Where can I find sulfur balls? Native sulfur is mainly found in three geological environments: hydrocarbon bearings, volcanic settings, seafloor, hydrothermal settings.
This just listen. When we were watching the Justin and Alex O'Connor conversation, which I don't know if we ever got that up or not, and he goes, you can't argue anybody into being a believer, right? this goes to show that, like, you can go to these places, you can see all the archaeological evidence, you can get all the information. There's more than enough out there to say, hey, you know these biblical stories about the flood, about Sodom and Gomorrah? You know that there's actually archaeological evidence for them by secular archaeologists making these statements, saying that it's definitely congruent, right? And unfortunately, when your heart is hardened and you're starting with the presupposition that nothing supernatural can happen or no God exists, then you will just rationalize and explain away these clear supernatural phenomena. What was the explanation that atheists try to give for this?
So they said, if God, how do atheists explain the ruins of Sodom and Gomorrah, the only place where sulfur balls can be found? If God doesn't exist, how do atheists explain? So if the Death Star didn't exist, how do you explain the destruction of Alderaan? To reference to Star Wars.
Yeah. It's like they're changing the presupposition.
Yep. You first have to establish that Sodom and Gomorrah were real places that were destroyed. It's quite likely that these cities never existed to begin with. Even if the real destruction of some Bronze Age cities inspired the stories of Sodom and Gomorrah, little explanation beyond a natural disaster such as an earthquake is needed. Or the whole city was on fire.
And the Bible very accurately describes what at the very least is a historical event.
A desert forest fire. Because they also said it had to be a natural disaster that lit a cemetery on fire.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, but again, it just goes to show, like, if someone's presupposition is something like this couldn't have happened, therefore it's not true, the resurrection is impossible because a man has never been risen from the dead. Well, that's what makes it supernatural, is that it's never happened and then it happened. That's the whole point. But if you already believe and you're starting with the premise that something supernatural can never happen, well, then it just becomes circular reasoning, right? Shout out to Bible Expedition, man. That's some good stuff. We see, according to the Bible, that prayer is extremely important in terms of us being transformed from the inside out when we get aligned with God's will. For the Christians watching this channel, I want you guys to implement these spiritual disciplines in your day-to-day life. And the only way I've been able to do this consistently is through writing down my prayers in a prayer journal that does a few things. One, it allows me to reflect and come to God humbly and ask Him to move on my behalf. And two, it allows me to document my prayers, which ultimately help me remember the very things that I was praying for and see the hand of God tangibly in my life when He answers them. So I would urge you, consider writing down your prayers. It could be in a blank notebook. It could even be on your phone. Or you could check out the one I personally designed and used for my own quiet time and spiritual discipline that I think will be a huge blessing. It's the exact structure and system that I've used for years to pray and be more consistent in my spiritual disciplines. You can pick yours up today by clicking the link in the pinned comment below. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.